Let's demystify tariffs. Tariffs are often talked about in the news, but what exactly are they? Simply put, they're taxes imposed on goods coming into a country. Think of them as a cover charge for foreign products entering the national economy club. When a country imposes tariffs, it's essentially making imported goods more expensive. This is done to encourage consumers to buy local products instead. The idea is to make imports pricier so local products look like a better deal. The goal? To protect domestic industries and jobs by making foreign goods less attractive. But while tariffs are often sold as job savers, they're really a sneaky tax on anyone who buys imported goods. So, basically all of us. Consumers end up paying more for everyday items, from electronics to clothing. Sure, tariffs can help protect new industries, giving them a chance to grow without being crushed by international competition. But get it wrong, and you risk a trade war, hurting exports and jobs. Trade wars can lead to a tit-for-tat escalation, where countries keep raising tariffs against each other. This can disrupt global supply chains and make it harder for businesses to operate smoothly. That's exactly what happened in the US recently, when the Trump administration went all in on tariffs, reshaping America's global relationships. This wasn't just about steel or washing machines. It was a sweeping strategy that led to a major legal showdown. The tariffs affected a wide range of industries and had far-reaching consequences. Businesses had to navigate a complex web of new regulations and higher costs, leading to a series of legal battles. And now, a Supreme Court decision has changed the game. The ruling has significant implications for how tariffs are implemented and challenged in the future. It's a reminder that while tariffs can be a powerful tool, they come with risks and complexities that can have a profound impact on the economy. Why did the Trump administration unleash a wave of tariffs? The answer is more complex than it first appears, involving a mix of economic strategy, political calculation, and legal maneuvering. At the heart of the matter was a desire to reshape America's role in the global economy and to challenge long-standing trade relationships that many in the administration believed were unfair to the United States. Officially, it was about national security and fixing trade deficits, claiming the US was the world's piggy bank. The administration argued that other countries were taking advantage of American openness, leading to massive trade imbalances and the loss of millions of manufacturing jobs. They insisted that tariffs would protect critical industries, from steel to technology, and restore economic strength at home. To make this possible, the administration turned to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, a law originally designed to target rogue regimes and national security threats. By invoking this act, they found a legal pathway to impose sweeping tariffs, sidestepping Congress, and traditional trade negotiation channels. By declaring a national emergency, they imposed sweeping tariffs, treating global trade as a security threat. This move allowed the administration to act quickly and decisively, bypassing lengthy legislative debates and positioning the US as a tough negotiator on the world stage. The real aim? Leverage. Tariffs became bargaining chips to force other countries into better trade deals. The administration hoped that by raising the stakes, they could pressure trading partners like China, Canada, and the European Union to make concessions and open their markets to American goods. Supporters called it a bold stand for American workers, arguing that it was time to fight back against decades of unfair trade. They saw tariffs as a way to revive struggling industries and restore pride in American manufacturing. Critics, however, saw reckless overreach and chaos, warning of higher prices, trade wars, and global instability. The use of emergency powers for economic policy alarmed many, raising questions about presidential authority. Legal scholars and lawmakers debated whether such sweeping actions were ever intended by the original law, and what limits, if any, should exist on executive power in matters of trade. The stage was set for a fierce legal and political battle, with the future of American trade policy, and the balance of power between Congress and the president, hanging in the balance. Legal challenges came fast. 12 states and countless businesses sued, arguing the president had overstepped. They said IEEPA was for real emergencies, not rewriting trade policy. Businesses, hit hard by tariffs, called them a crippling tax that hurt profits and created chaos. States pointed to job losses and economic harm, especially in industries relying on imports. At the heart of the lawsuit, the Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to tax and regulate trade. Plaintiffs argued the President can't declare a trade deficit an emergency and bypass Congress. This wasn't just about economics. It was about the limits of presidential power. The outcome would set a precedent for future presidents and the balance of power. The courts moved quickly, recognizing the urgency and national attention surrounding the case. Legal teams from both sides prepared their arguments at a rapid pace, knowing that the outcome would have far-reaching consequences for the balance of power in the federal government. A federal judge issued a swift injunction, blocking the tariffs from taking effect. In a strongly worded opinion, the judge declared the administration's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, to be unconstitutional in this context. The ruling emphasized that emergency powers were never meant to bypass Congress on matters of taxation and trade. The case quickly moved up the judicial ladder. Both the Court of International Trade and the Court of Appeals reviewed the arguments and agreed with the lower court. They concluded that trade deficits, while important, do not constitute the kind of emergency that justifies extraordinary executive action. Their decision sent a clear message about the limits of presidential authority. The Supreme Court, recognizing the significance of the case, agreed to hear the appeal. Legal experts across the country debated the possible outcomes, with many predicting a challenging path ahead for the administration's defense of its actions. During oral arguments, even some of the court's conservative justices expressed skepticism. They questioned whether granting such broad executive power would undermine the constitutional separation of powers and set a dangerous precedent for future presidents. Finally, the Supreme Court delivered its verdict. In a landmark decision, the justices struck down the tariffs, ruling that the president cannot use emergency powers to impose sweeping taxes or tariffs without explicit congressional approval. The decision was hailed as a major victory for the rule of law. The ruling reinforced the constitutional principle that Congress, not the president, holds the power to regulate trade and taxation. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill welcomed the decision as a reaffirmation of their authority. This landmark ruling not only checks presidential power, but also sets a new legal standard for how economic emergencies are defined and addressed. It will serve as a reference point for future legal battles over executive authority. While the legal battle has ended, the economic and political fallout is just beginning. Markets reacted swiftly, and politicians from both parties began debating the broader implications for U.S. trade policy and executive power. The Supreme Court's decision will shape how future administrations approach trade, emergency powers, and the delicate balance between the branches of government for years to come. The Supreme Court's decision triggered a massive refund, up to $150 billion owed to American businesses. Companies that paid these tariffs now get their money back, a huge win after months of uncertainty and squeezed profits. But the refund doesn't erase the disruption or lost opportunities. For the government, it's a fiscal nightmare. Not only is future tariff revenue gone, but they must repay what's already been spent. This leaves a gaping hole in the federal budget, forcing tough choices on spending and taxes. For consumers, the end of tariffs should mean lower prices on imported goods. Businesses get stability, but some domestic industries lose their protective shield. The economic ripple effects will take time to play out. The Supreme Court ruling sent shockwaves through global trade. The Trump administration had used tariffs as leverage to secure huge deals with the EU and Japan. Now, with tariffs declared illegal, the foundation of those deals is shaky. European and Japanese leaders may demand renegotiation or walk away, arguing they agreed under duress. The U.S. risks seeing its signature trade achievements unravel. Without the threat of tariffs, future negotiations will be tougher and more traditional. The decision injects uncertainty into America's global trade relationships. Anticipating defeat, the administration pivoted to a new strategy targeted tariffs using other legal tools, like Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. Instead of broad tariffs, they're now launching sector-specific investigations: robotics, medical devices, minerals. This creates a patchwork of unpredictable industry-specific tariffs. Businesses now face sudden targeted duties, making planning a nightmare. The pharmaceutical industry is a prime example. After threats of huge tariffs, companies like Pfizer negotiated exemptions in exchange for price cuts. This ad hoc, deal-by-deal approach breeds uncertainty and an uneven playing field. The tariff whack-a-mole era has begun, with industries scrambling to avoid the next hit. The chaos continues, just in a new form. Why should you care? Because this decision affects your wallet. With tariffs gone, imported goods should get cheaper, putting money back in your pocket. Businesses and workers get stability, but some industries face new competition. Globally, the ruling signals a return to predictable, rules-based trade. It also reasserts Congress's authority over taxes and trade, checking presidential power. In a world of growing executive reach, this Supreme Court decision is a crucial reminder. Even in a complex economy, the rules and the balance of power still matter. The story isn't over, but the ground rules have changed.